Let's start with something brutally honest. You already know what needs to be done. You know what's holding you back. You know what you keep avoiding. You know the exact actions that would move your life forward, but you're not doing them. Why? It's not because you're lazy, not because you're incapable, not because you're not ready. It's because your mind has been trained, not by you, but by fear, by comfort, by society, to run from the hard things. But here's the truth most people never realize. The hard things you avoid are the exact things that would make you unstoppable. Discipline isn't about waking up at 5 a.m. just to post a quote online. It's about choosing what's difficult on purpose, because you know that's where the growth is. It's about showing up for your future self, even when your present self is begging you to take the easy way out. Because you don't rise in moments of ease, you rise in moments of resistance. Think about it. When was the last time you did something truly difficult? Not because someone forced you, but because you chose it. Something uncomfortable, inconvenient, ugly, something that demanded your full mental presence even when no one was watching. That's where strength is built. That's where the mind is forged, not inspired, forged. And yet most people live their lives avoiding those moments. They wait to feel motivated. They wait for the fear to go away. They wait for perfect clarity, and so they wait forever. Let me tell you something that will sting a little, but you need to hear it. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. Discipline isn't gentle. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't check if you're in the mood. Discipline just shows up and does what must be done. When you train your mind to accept discomfort as necessary, not optional, everything changes. Your resistance to doing the hard thing, that voice in your head that says, not today, maybe tomorrow, it begins to lose power. And in its place, something new begins to grow. Mental immunity, the ability to stare down a challenge and move anyway. The ability to do what's difficult when everyone else is looking for the exit. The ability to delay gratification not for a minute or a day, but for as long as it takes. Discipline is what builds you quietly when the world isn't clapping. No applause, no dopamine, no external validation, just you choosing, acting, building, day after day. Now you may be thinking, but I don't have that kind of discipline. I'm not built that way. And that's where you're wrong. You weren't born with discipline. No one was. Discipline is not a trait. It's not a gift. It's a decision you make every single time you do the thing you don't want to do. It's built like muscle, in silence, in repetition, in pain. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. But you know what's also uncomfortable? Regret, mediocrity, being stuck in the same place a year from now, 5 years from now, knowing you could have been so much more. That's a level of pain you can't afford. So what's the alternative? You start now. You train your mind like your life depends on it, because it does. You get up when it's inconvenient, you finish what you start, you go the extra hour, the extra mile, the extra set, not because you feel like it, but because the version of you you're becoming demands it. You make discipline your weapon, because once your mind is trained to obey your purpose, not your mood, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, you won't be able to do. Every morning you wake up, you step into war, not against the world, not against people, but against yourself, your weaker self. That part of you that whispers, hit snooze, start tomorrow. You've done enough. Just one more break. It doesn't scream, it doesn't shout, it seduces. And the truth is, it's winning more battles than you're willing to admit. That part of you is skilled at negotiation. It knows how to talk you out of discomfort. It knows exactly how to make laziness feel like self-care. It knows how to convince you that avoidance is protection, when really, it's a slow death of potential. And until you decide to silence that voice, to discipline it, to overpower it, it will continue to rob you quietly day after day. Here's something most people will never tell you. Discipline is violent, not against others, but against your own excuses. It doesn't ask, are we comfortable yet? It says, we go anyway. And that's the mindset you have to cultivate if you want to change your life. Because nothing worth having will ever be handed to you when you feel ready. It will only come to those who move through the mud of hesitation, through the cold of self-doubt, through the exhaustion of showing up on the days they feel like they have nothing left. If you want the life no one else has, you need to become someone no one else is willing to be. And that begins not with hype, not with motivation, but with mental obedience. Let's make it even clearer. Discipline is not just about doing hard things. It's about doing the right hard things. You could spend your whole life being busy, pushing yourself, grinding, and still get nowhere. Because discipline without direction is just exhaustion. So ask yourself, what are the hard things I'm avoiding that I know would transform me? Is it having that uncomfortable conversation you've delayed for months? Is it waking up an hour earlier and finally committing to a routine? Is it quitting the thing that's poisoning your progress, even if it feels good in the moment? Discipline starts with clarity. You can't obey your purpose if you're still vague about what that purpose is. Write it down, face it, own it, then go after it relentlessly. And don't expect applause. In fact, expect silence, because discipline doesn't attract attention, at least not at first. It's quiet, it's lonely, it's repetitive, and that's why it works, because while everyone else is seeking stimulation, chasing validation, scrolling for dopamine, you're out here building something real, something unshakable, something that no one can take from you because you earned it the hard way. You want freedom, you want peace, you want confidence. You earn it by doing the hard thing again and again and again until your mind stops questioning it, until your body knows the routine, until your nervous system stops resisting and starts cooperating. That's when the shift happens, when you're no longer at war with yourself, when the voice that used to beg you to quit now speaks in your favor. One more rep. You're not done yet. Let's go. That's the voice of discipline. And once that voice is louder than the one that makes excuses, you become dangerous. Let me ask you something real. How many times have you set out to do something hard, something meaningful, and found yourself halfway through questioning everything? Not because it wasn't worth it, but because your emotions convinced you it was too much. That internal resistance, it's not random. It's your brain protecting the old version of you, the version that's addicted to comfort, the version that can't see past today's pain. But here's the problem. If you only move when it feels good, you'll never move far. Every goal worth pursuing is built on the back of emotional resistance. That's the cost of growth, not effort, resistance. And your ability to move anyway is what separates the average from the unstoppable. Discipline is not about feeling fearless. It's about doing the thing while fear is screaming in your ear. It's about sitting with discomfort and not backing down. It's about staying calm when your nerves are begging you to run. You need to train your mind to stop interpreting discomfort as a warning. It's not danger, it's direction. If it scares you, it's probably the next step. The longer you avoid it, the louder the excuses become. But when you lean into it, when you walk directly into the discomfort, you kill the power it had over you. Every time you obey fear, it grows. Every time you override it, you shrink it. Discipline is the act of choosing who gets to be in charge, your mission or your mood. People think motivation is what gets things done. No, motivation is a visitor. Discipline is the landlord. Motivation shows up when things are exciting. Discipline stays when things are ugly, quiet, and thankless. And that's the moment that forges character, when no one sees you, no one celebrates you, and you show up anyway. That's when you shift from trying to becoming. Think about the people you admire, the ones who make you feel like you could do more, be more. They didn't get there because everything was easy or because they were born different. They got there because they stopped negotiating with their emotions. They stopped waiting for the perfect conditions. They trained themselves to move even when their entire body wanted to freeze. And over time, that became their default setting. Not reaction, but discipline. Not panic, but process. Not weakness, but will. The more you practice this, the more it rewires your identity. You stop being someone who occasionally gets things done. You become someone who finishes what they start, someone whose word means something, someone whose presence carries weight. Not because of what they say, but because of what they endure. And you can start building that version of you today. Not next Monday. Not after your situation improves. Right now, in the middle of your chaos, your stress, your doubts, that's where discipline is built. In the fire. It's built when you choose action over avoidance. When you show up late at night and early in the morning. When you say no to what's easy and yes to what's necessary. When you stop choosing what makes you feel good now and start choosing what will make you proud later. That's the real currency of discipline. Not results, but pride. Pride in knowing you didn't fold. Pride in knowing you went one more round when it would have been easier to quit. So when your emotions rise, when your mind throws every excuse it has, when you feel resistance building in your chest, pause, breathe. Remember who you said you want to become, and move. Not because it's easy, not because you're inspired, but because that's what discipline does. And eventually the emotions that once controlled you will start respecting you. They'll quiet down. They'll follow your lead. Because now you've shown them who's in charge. You've been told your whole life to chase motivation, that once you feel inspired, everything will fall into place, that all you need is the right mindset or the right moment to start changing your life. But motivation is a liar. It's a spark, not a fire. It shows up randomly and disappears just as fast. And if you build your life around waiting for it, you'll waste years in the waiting room of your own potential. The real question isn't how do I stay motivated, it's who do I need to become so I don't rely on it anymore. Because here's the deeper truth. Discipline isn't about what you do, it's about who you believe you are. You don't rise by forcing yourself to act, you rise when action becomes natural. And that only happens when you rewire your identity. When doing the hard thing isn't a struggle, it's just who you are, not an exception, a pattern, a part of your core. It's not about hacks. It's not about being hyped up. It's about asking yourself, what kind of person gets up at 5 a.m. to build the life they want, and then becoming that person before the results even exist. You don't wait until you're successful to act like someone who's successful. You act like that person now. That's identity-based discipline. That's where the shift happens, deep, internal, permanent. Because the truth is you're already disciplined. You already follow patterns. The problem is they're the wrong ones. You've trained yourself to check your phone when you feel bored, to quit when things get uncomfortable, to make excuses the moment pressure shows up. That's discipline too, just pointed in the wrong direction. What you need isn't to get more disciplined. What you need is to retrain where that discipline is aimed. Start by observing your defaults. What do you do when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when you're overwhelmed? That's where the real training happens. Not in the perfect days, but in the dirty, messy, chaotic ones. If you can learn to hold your standard in the middle of the storm, you win. Not just today, always. And let's be honest, it won't feel good. That's the trap most people fall into. They expect discipline to feel rewarding, to give them a sense of flow, of clarity, of pride every time. But more often than not, it feels boring, tedious, lonely. That's why people quit. They confuse discomfort with dysfunction. They think, this doesn't feel right, so I must be doing it wrong. No, you're doing it exactly right. The pain you feel, that's your old identity dying. That resistance, that's your system being rewired. And if you can survive that tension long enough, the transformation becomes irreversible. It's not supposed to be pretty, it's supposed to be real. And real growth is ugly, it's messy, it's hidden. The public sees the result, the confidence, the control, the calm. But they don't see the nights you forced yourself out of bed, the days you fought your own mind, the 1,000 tiny choices no one applauded. That's where real strength lives. So if you're in the middle of that now, if you're doing the work and it feels like no one notices and you're questioning whether it's even worth it, let me remind you of something. You're building something no one can take from you. You're not just changing what you do, you're changing what you tolerate, what you believe, what you embody, and eventually that becomes unshakable. Don't train for results, train for identity. Don't train for applause, train for alignment. Be the kind of person who does the hard things, not because they're hard, but because you no longer give yourself permission to avoid them. That's how you change your life. There's no such thing as a life without pain. That's the illusion most people chase. Some fantasy where discipline feels easy, success comes without sacrifice, and change happens without struggle. But here's the truth. You're going to feel pain either way. The question is, which pain are you willing to live with? The pain of discipline or the pain of regret? The pain of discipline is heavy, but it's purposeful. It's the ache of pushing when you don't want to. It's the soreness of effort, the weight of accountability, the discomfort of self-control. It shows up early, it's often invisible to others, and it demands everything you've got. But it pays you back always. The pain of regret, though, that's a different beast. It lingers. It eats at you when you're alone. It keeps you awake at night, whispering, what if? It's not sharp like discipline. It's dull, chronic, heavy. And once it sets in, no amount of distraction can drown it out. So when you're faced with that moment, the moment when you could go back to comfort or lean into what's hard, don't ask, what's easier right now? Ask, what will cost me more later? Because discipline always costs you something in the short term, but regret will bankrupt your future. Understand this. People who do hard things don't enjoy pain more than you. They've just made peace with the idea that growth requires it. They've chosen it intentionally. They don't run from it. They run into it. They use it. They shape it into focus, hunger, and drive. They don't wait to feel fearless. They act despite fear, and through that, they become something stronger. Pain becomes power the moment you stop resisting it. But most people never make it to that point because they've trained their entire lives to avoid even minor discomfort. A little boredom, grab your phone. A tough conversation, delay it. A hard task, push it to tomorrow. But all those tiny avoidances, they add up. And what they really train is fragility. And fragile minds don't build strong lives. You need to train yourself to see resistance not as a wall, but as a doorway, a signal, a test. Something that says, this is the edge of who you used to be. Push through and you step into something new. That's where real change happens. Not in the easy stuff you've already mastered, but in the discomfort you've been dodging. And yes, it will feel awkward, clumsy, maybe even humiliating. But that's how new standards are built. Because here's what no one tells you. Discipline doesn't make you feel invincible. It makes you feel raw, vulnerable, confronted. But over time, that vulnerability becomes strength because you've stopped hiding from yourself. You've stopped letting your emotions call the shots. You've stopped outsourcing your future to how you feel in the moment. That's what separates winners from wishers. Winners don't always feel like showing up. They show up anyway. They don't wait to be in the mood. They train their mood to follow their moves. They don't wake up every day pumped and powerful. They wake up disciplined, and through that, they become powerful. The people you admire most, they aren't superhuman. They've just suffered on purpose. They've chosen hard things enough times that it stopped scaring them. They've built immunity to the excuses you're still obeying, not because they're better, but because they've trained longer. And so can you. So the next time you feel resistance rise up, that internal pressure to quit, avoid, delay, ask yourself, do I want the pain now or a lifetime of wondering what would have happened if I'd stayed in the fight? Because one of those pains will shape you, the other will slowly erase you. There's a dangerous trap that most people fall into without ever realizing it. It's not failure, it's comfort. Comfort is seductive. It tells you you've done enough. It convinces you to slow down, to take it easy, to relax before the work is done, and little by little, without even noticing, you stop growing. See, comfort is the reward life gives you for lowering your standards. It's the space between who you are and who you could be. And when you live in that space for too long, you forget there's more to reach for. But discipline, real discipline, refuses to live in that gap. It demands that your actions meet your potential, that your standards match your vision. It doesn't settle. It doesn't play small to avoid friction. It's honest with you in a way most people never are. You're capable of more, and you know it. That voice inside you, the one that nags when you're wasting time, when you're pretending to try, when you're making excuses, that's not guilt. That's your standard calling you back. It's not there to punish you. It's there to remind you of what you said you were going to become. But here's the thing. Standards only mean something if you enforce them. It's easy to say, I don't skip workouts, I always finish what I start, or I don't waste time. But the moment you make an exception, you've rewritten the rule. The moment you let yourself slide, just once, your brain starts learning a new pattern. My word doesn't really matter. And that's when it all begins to unravel. Because discipline doesn't crack all at once. It erodes, slowly, silently, one skipped task, one ignored promise, one lie to yourself at a time, until one day you wake up and you don't recognize who you are, because you've trained your mind to believe that your emotions, not your commitments, are the final authority. If you want to live differently, you need to hold yourself to a higher standard, not when it's convenient, not when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. Anyone can be consistent when they feel good. Anyone can show up when everything is flowing. That's not impressive. What's rare is the person who holds the line when no one is watching, who finishes the task when there's no applause, who doesn't adjust their standard to match their mood. Discipline is staying loyal to what you said you'd do, long after the mood you set it in has left you. It's not about being harsh with yourself. It's about being honest, being relentless in your pursuit of what matters, being someone who means what they say, not just to others, but to themselves. Because here's what no one tells you. Every time you follow through on something hard, your confidence grows. Not the fake, loud, external kind, the quiet kind, the kind that doesn't need validation, the kind that makes you walk differently, think differently, decide differently, because now your brain has evidence. I do hard things, I don't run, I show up, and that evidence compounds. Before you know it, you stop seeing yourself as someone trying to be disciplined and start seeing yourself as someone who simply is. You stop fighting yourself every day. You stop questioning whether you're cut out for this, and you start moving with calm intensity, focused, clear, dangerous. Because that's what discipline gives you. Not just structure, not just performance, power, quiet power, real power, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself because its results speak louder than any words ever could. You can't master your life until you master your mind. That's the root of all discipline. Every action starts with a thought. Every breakthrough, every failure, every excuse, it all begins with a single idea you either allowed or rejected. The mind is the command center, and if you don't control it, something else will. Most people are completely unaware of how undisciplined their thinking has become. They don't question the narratives playing in their head. They don't realize how much of their behavior is driven by automated scripts they never wrote. Scripts like, I'm not good enough, I always quit, this is too much, I need more time. And the more you think a thought, the more familiar it becomes. The more familiar it becomes, the more believable it feels. And eventually, you stop questioning it and start living as if it were true. But here's what you need to understand. You are not your thoughts. You are the one observing them. And that means you have the power to direct them, to challenge them, to overwrite them. Discipline isn't just about action. It's about mental alignment. It's about choosing which thoughts deserve your attention and which need to be shut down the moment they surface. Because every time you allow a disempowering thought to run its course unchecked, you reinforce a belief that weakens you, and beliefs become behavior, not sometimes, always. So how do you take your mind back? You start by catching the lie before it settles in. When your mind says, you're tired, skip it, you don't debate it. You respond, I decide what happens next. When it says, this is too hard, you ask, compared to what? When it says, you'll never be enough, you declare, that voice has no seat at this table. This is the internal training that no one sees. The mental reps, the quiet war, the battle between the you that wants to rise and the you that wants to coast. And make no mistake, this is where most people lose. Not in the gym, not in business, not in relationships, but in their own head at 6 a.m. when no one's watching and the comfort of quitting is whispering sweet nothings. But not you, not anymore. You build the discipline of thought by being ruthless with what you allow to stay. You don't entertain doubt like it's a guest. You slam the door in its face. You don't let worry pace the room. You command silence. You don't replay worst-case scenarios. You rehearse the standard you've chosen to live by. Because the more disciplined your thinking becomes, the less effort it takes to act. You're no longer fighting upstream. Your thoughts support your goals. Your identity aligns with your actions. And the war inside quiets down. Not because it disappears, but because now you're winning. You start walking into situations with a calm authority. You stop reacting impulsively. You choose your focus. You become strategic. You become grounded. And that's when people notice. They don't know what changed. They just feel it, the shift, the presence, the clarity. It's what happens when a person stops living as a slave to their thoughts and starts using those thoughts as tools. So next time you feel overwhelmed, distracted, doubtful, pause. Don't obey the first thought. Don't feed the emotion. Step back, observe it, question it, and choose a better one. Not because it's easy, but because that's who you're becoming. Your mind is your battlefield. Discipline is your weapon. Use it. People think discipline is a cage, that it limits freedom, that it restricts expression. But that's only what it looks like from the outside. The truth? Discipline is the only real freedom there is. Everything else is an illusion. You think sleeping in is freedom, but it robs your energy for the rest of the day. You think saying, I'll do it tomorrow is freedom, but it chains you to a future that never comes. You think following your mood is freedom, but it makes you a prisoner of inconsistency. That's not freedom, that's chaos disguised as choice. Real freedom is waking up and knowing you're in control. It's looking at a hard task and knowing you've trained for this. It's building a life so solid no one can take it from you. Not the economy, not opinions, not even your past. And you don't get there by doing what's easy. You get there by doing what most people avoid. By walking the path of resistance while everyone else is numbing themselves with distractions. You build it slowly, repetitively, in pain. Because freedom has a price, and discipline is how you pay it. Daily. You'll be misunderstood. People will say you're too intense, too rigid. They won't understand why you say no when they say yes. Why you show up when they hit snooze. Why you keep going when there's no applause. And that's okay. They don't need to understand. They don't see the life you're building, the war you're winning, the internal empire you're constructing every time you do what's hard, what's right, what's yours to do. They won't see the nights you get up and push yourself. They won't see the moments where you're exhausted but still show up with excellence. They won't know the battles you win quietly inside your own head, but you will. You'll feel it, you'll carry it, you'll become it. And here's the real secret. One day, all those hard things won't feel hard anymore. Not because they got easier, but because you got stronger. Because you raised your threshold. Because you trained your nervous system, your emotions, your habits, your soul to operate on a different level. That's not ego. That's evidence. You became the type of person who does hard things like it's just another Tuesday. And that changes everything. You start approaching challenges like puzzles, not problems. You start taking setbacks as fuel, not failures. You stop asking, can I do this? And start saying, watch me. This is what happens when discipline stops being something you do and becomes who you are. You move in silence. You strike with purpose. You lead without noise. You don't need to prove anything because your life proves it for you. You don't beg for respect because your presence commands it. You don't need motivation because your mission is louder than your feelings. That's the final level of discipline, not rigid, not robotic, but aligned, authentic, inevitable. So here's how we end this. You don't need a new plan. You don't need better motivation. You don't need more information. You need to choose who you're going to be from this moment forward. Will you continue obeying the part of you that fears hard things? Or will you rise quietly, steadily, daily, and become the person who welcomes the challenge? Because the truth is, you were never meant to live soft. You were built for pressure. You were designed to lead. And the discipline you build now will carry you farther than talent ever could. Do the hard thing, do it often, do it silently. And one day people will ask how you made it. And you'll smile because you'll know the answer is simple. Discipline every single day.